does the nationality play a big role in the great workplace?
No.
And okay. And a question onto that lag behind is, what is the biggest challenges you have seen in Sri Lanka for an organization to be a great workplace?
Right. So definitely nationality plays no, I can say clearly, no role at all. Right. The focus entirely is on, given your nationality, your country, your industry, your organization, big or small, right? Whether you can create that environment that your employees feel, appreciated and valued, and whether they can feel that they're contributing to that environment, that create that high trust environment in where you can get high performing individuals, and therefore. We're saying, any organization, we have this mantra that says any organization can become a great place to work, right? And that is true, right? The biggest challenges that we have seen, we say that building a great workplace has to start right at the top. If you look at that pyramid, right? It's not the other way around. So basically, decision makers have to get involved in this process, right? This is not an HR initiative. A lot of the time people mistake us for an HR organization. We don't, even till about a few months back, we didn't even have any HR people in our team. Our entire team was sans any HR skills or HR people in our team, right? So we are definitely not in that space. This is not an HR initiative. This is an initiative that needs to be driven from the top, because it's about culture, and culture can only be put in place or changed or transformed or even be implemented by the intent of the key leaders, right? So getting that buy-in from leadership is I would say is the biggest challenge that we are still. It was the biggest challenge day one. I mean, we've come a long way. We assessed nearly 500 organizations in Sri Lanka in the 10 years, but nevertheless, and we have some excellent leaders, top leaders getting involved in that process and, driving organizations down this journey of building great workplaces. But still, I would say that would be the single biggest challenge, is to get the buy-in of top management or top leadership in organizations. And the reason they are Rohanta most often is people still believe that culture is soft. Culture doesn't need to be measured, right? Culture just exists, right? They do not still understand that, as the saying goes, that, basically culture is more important than strategy these days. And it is a new currency. So organizations need to spend, their money and effort in making sure that the organization culture is right, and the other things will fall into place, right? Easier said than done. So getting that buy-in remains our biggest challenge. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another MBA Diaries session. Today, we have a wonderful topic waiting for you, a great place to work, components. So before we start today's session, I would like us to have a short video played from the company, A Great Place to Work. Shall we have the video? To officially start today's session, I would like to welcome Dr. Rohanto to introduce our speaker. Doctor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And we got an amazing person who is going to speak to us today. She has over 30 years of corporate entrepreneurial management consultancy experience, has demonstrated superior leadership, project management skills, and the ability to plan, execute, and manage complex projects and resources in multicultural environments. Prior to setting up the Great Place to Work, she was the founding executive director of SLASCOM, which is the industry body of the IT BPO industry in Sri Lanka. And in 2005, took a step away from the corporate in Sri Lanka and ventured as an entrepreneur, where she became the founding CEO, executive director of C-Level LLC, and a principal of Washington Technology Partners, WTB Capital in the USA. Using her knowledge and familiarity with the global IT BPO business trends, she went on to advise companies across the world on business linkages, investment opportunities in Asia. Served on the local IT industry for 18 years, where she developed a career and was the director CEO of the Computer Systems Limited, CCSLL, a fully owned subsidiary of Capital Maharaj Group. She also was the alumnus of Ladies College Colombo, and she excels both academically and the field of sports. She obtained a professional qualification in the fields of information technology and is a member of both the British Computer Society, the Australian Computer Society, and has completed an MBA at the Australian Institute of Business Management. Ladies and gentlemen, the Director CEO of Great Place of Work, Kshanika Ratnayaka. Kshanika, over to you.
Thank you, Rohanka. And thank you, Ruth, for introducing me to this great audience. I'm delighted to be able to converse with the APIT alumni and students of the MBA program. And also very pleased that I will be able to take a few minutes. I have only 20 minutes given to me today to share some concepts around how we go about building a great place to work and what are those key components that matter when you get about this journey of building a great workplace. So to get started, I have one of my colleagues and an old APIT or an alumni of APIT with me, Hazik Feroz, who's helping me set up my slides for this evening. Can everybody see my screen, or can I just get a thumbs up or an okay if my screen is visible?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so the topic at hand today is really a great place to work for all, and we will get into the detail of what the for all means, but we're talking about building great workplaces for all employees in an organization, irrespective of what they do and where they come from, right? And in order to do this, we say a great workplace, we need to build a workplace culture that enables organizations to maximize human potential. So today, as I mentioned, I have 20 minutes and I have 3 key objectives that I will try to deliver in that time frame by helping you to understand, for starters, what are the key characteristics of culture that help organizations maximize human potential. What are the key components that we need to focus on when building a high trust work culture in your organizations or amongst your teams. And finally, how leaders of organizations can be empowered by utilizing tools to create and sustain a consistently positive experience, or positive employee experience. So I think the key word here being a consistent and positive employee experience, because it's not something we are looking to do for one time or become just a great place to work and be recognized or carry certification for one time. We are looking for organizations to put together a workplace culture that can be sustained over a long period of time. And therefore, we refer to the process of building a great workplace as a journey, as opposed to a destination that you need to just arrive in, right? So with these objectives in mind, I will launch directly into right. So we position ourselves as a global authority on workplace culture. And we know that this is a bold statement to call ourselves a global authority, and it has taken us a very long time to be entirely comfortable with this statement, right? But when we look at the scale at which we operate globally, the volume of voices that are captured in a standardized and comparable way, we are confident that this is actually a fact. The next time you see an employee engagement for one, study, if it pops up on your screen or you're taking an assessment of sorts, just take a look at how many people who may be also taking that survey, how many people are in this study. Often you will note that it may be couple of hundreds or a few thousand people at most, right? We are referring to approximately 10 million employees across the globe taking our assessment. In almost every piece of the global content that we publish, there are tens and thousands of voices represented, right? Which makes it a very credible study that we conduct annually. And these are perspectives that we are gathering from all around the world and every single year, right? So we're talking about 10,000 companies plus and 100,000 countries and territories that we are doing this, using all kinds of nearly 100 plus languages. And we do these studies annually, right? So we're meaning that we are actually measuring the current context. What are the conditions in the market? For example, the pandemic or the post-pandemic situations, economic situations, the wars, the recessions that are going on in the markets, and how are these impacting the different economies, the different countries, the different industries that we are assessing, right? And we have done this for more than 30 years. We've worked with companies all around the world to help them gather feedback from their employees, and we are able to benchmark the view on key drivers of what make great workplaces, to understand how they compare to be recognized when they've created a great workplace and how others compare to themselves, right? Not just that, we also work hand in hand to facilitate organizations be better, make continuous improvements to a variety of services. And the key here is to sustain growth over time, right? Now, while you see several data points here from our annual global study on your screen, here in Sri Lanka, we just completed our study for last year, meaning with our end of our financial year, which was March 31st. And our study data for last year is that we worked with over 160 organizations representing more than 20 industries across more than 94,000 employees. That is data points for Sri Lanka. So we have just validated why we refer to ourselves as a global authority in terms of workplace culture, right? So why do we do what we do is the next question, right? What is our purpose? Because we believe that work has power to transform society, right? And that basically it is not just for some people, it is for all people in the working community. And when you put everybody together, this can have a big impact on organizations, then building societies and entire countries, which is why we also believe that Great Place to Work in Sri Lanka is fully committed to making Sri Lanka a great place to work, right? Our vision globally is that, it's our secret sauce. A great place to work doesn't stop at great for some or great for most. We are helping companies become a great place to work for all, right? And I mentioned that we were going to talk about what is it that we refer to when we say for all. We know that it is better for business, better for people, and better for the world. Oops, I think I had too many clicks there. Right. Yeah, so we say our vision, once again, is that the future of work is for all. In Sri Lanka, we refer to this as making Sri Lanka a great place to work. But clearly, we're doing this because we know that it's better for business, better for people, and better for the world. So let's take a quick look also at what our mission is, right? What are we trying to achieve here, right? Our mission is to help every place, right? Every organization, big or small, across all industries, across all countries, anywhere in the world, become a great place to work for all, right? We stand with many of the leading best workplaces who are also committed to changing the world and ensuring great workplaces for all are the norm, right? We want that to become the norm, not only in their own employees, but to positively influence a broader workforce in their industry and their communities and countries. So what does this look like, right? You may think that it all sounds great, but what's the point? Why do we go down this path? And if you take a look at this pyramid structure here, you will understand that, an environment or creating a great workplace culture is at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And it has a ripple effect, or it has other things that get built on as a result of, by default, creating a great workplace culture, or what we refer to as a high trust culture, right? When you build a high trust environment, you have positively good experience across, you have a consistent and positive, I said those are the keywords, experience across the organization. When you have that in the environment, you see the ability to maximize human potential. And I said at the beginning that we're going to talk about how it is that we enable organizations to maximize human potential, right? When you are doing that, you're obviously retaining your top performance, and you're creating an environment in which they are collaborating, which drives high performance, all employees that are performing well to be engaged in the organization as well, right? Naturally, this results in growth, performance and results in growth for the organization. And the more growth, and as long as there is continuous growth for an organization, obviously we're looking to create that entire sustainability, the organization that is sustained and continues to grow over these difficult times, right? We're talking about pandemic, post-pandemic, economic crisis, and we're referring to building a great workplace culture that can withstand these situations, that is robust, that is resilient. And how do we do that? By starting to put in place a workplace culture that has a high trust environment. So let's take a look at the model that we have implemented in order to bring this together, right? We say our research, we mentioned that we've been working on this for more than 30 years now, and our research shows that great workplaces for all are able to maximize their human potential through some key parameters, as key building blocks, right? We say these are effective leadership, meaningful values, and a deep foundation of trust, right? In which all employees, regardless of who they are and what they do in the organization, can contribute. And when those are in place, these workplaces benefit from outcomes that we refer to in the top left-hand and right-hand corners of the block that you see here. And these outcomes are that all employees are contributing towards innovation in the organization, and this in itself is contributing to financial growth for the organization. Right? And all of this, of course, we say happens is characterized in that environment of high trust, high performance. Right? So we're saying you build an environment around a high trust model, which is supported by effective leadership and meaningful values, and it results in producing an environment where you see the maximum best of human potential and the outcomes of innovation by all and financial growth, right? So that is what we are bringing together in this slide. And this is the model that we use when we look at organizations to see if they have a great workplace culture, right? So we said trust. Trust is the key component we referred to, right? So trust becomes the differentiator. 75% of what we measure in our surveys in order to understand if it is a great workplace is built around trust, right? So trust is fundamental to a great workplace because we're referring to creating a high trust environment, and that in itself will drive high performance, right? So the core aspects of trust, what we're measuring here, is the need to build a strong overall level of trust in the organization. This is the relationship between employees and management, right? So our model that we use to assess organizations, it's an employee-centric model, and when you put the employee in the center, we say the key relationship is between employee and management, and that is driven by trust, right? Then we're looking at programs and practices designed to create a positive employee experience that drive that high trust culture. And so that those are the two aspects that we're talking about, the core aspects that define a sense of trust in the organization. If we look at the tools that we use in order to understand the levels of trust in the organization, we say there are 5 focus areas that we bring together in order, we measure really, in order to understand the levels of trust in the organization. The first 3 are around credibility, respect, and fairness. And these encompass what we refer to as 75% of what we're measuring, which is trust, right? So there are definitions, as you can see in this slide, for each of these components that we are measuring. The second relationship that we look at in the organization is between employee and job, and that is driven around pride. And we measure pride at 3 levels. We try to understand whether people are proud in the elements of individual work that they're doing in the organization and how it contributes towards the overall purpose of the organization. Then we look to see whether they have a sense of pride in their team. And finally, we measure pride for the overall organization in the sense of the corporate culture of the organization. The last aspect, the last focus area, as you see in the corner, is about camaraderie. Camaraderie is built on the relationship between employee and other employees or your team members. And we're looking to measure a sense of whether they feel that there is a sense of intimacy in the workplace, and therefore, that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling, and that they work together in a team, work together in a team culture, right? So if you look at this in a little more of a diagrammatic form, these are the 3 relationships that we were talking about. So when you put the employee in the center, we say there are 3 key relationships, one between employee and management, one between employee and his or her job, and one between employee and other employees or team members in the organization. And these 3 key relationships are what we measure typically when we're looking for to see if there's a great workplace culture in an organization. Now, the component of trust, as I said before, is the slide is not moving. The component of, one more click. Right. Is measured through credibility, respect, and fairness. The measure of a component of pride has 3 levels, as I mentioned before, and camaraderie has those aspects of intimacy, hospitality, and community feel, right? So this brings together our simple definition that we have in place for what we call a great place to work, right? We refer to it, a great place to work, we say, is where employees trust the people that they work with, have pride in the work that they do, and enjoy the people that you work with, right? So this is how we bring together what we're trying to create in terms of a great workplace environment. So that is, we've been talking about trust all of this time, right? So we said we needed a deep-rooted, broad-based sense of trust in the organization, but obviously trust has to be supported by effective leaders, right? Is leadership effective in terms of enabling that trust to be espoused in the organization? And we're saying effective leadership teams has an emotional connection with their company's culture and its people, as well as ability to create a coherent and effective strategy at every level of the business, right? So what are the core aspects here? The confidence in competence and the vision of management. Employees need to feel that management competence is there, and that leaders are approachable, and sincerity in developing a positive relationship with its employees, right? So is management approachable, and are they really concerned, and are they caring enough to actually develop positive relationships with employees? So these are the core aspects that we measure across leadership effectiveness. The other aspect that we talked of in terms of enabling trust in the organization is to ensure that there are meaningful values. Now we know every organization has values, right? But are these values meaningful, or are they just items that are in your annual reports or on walls or on placards or things like that? Or do we actually live the values day to day in our lives, in our working lives, particularly how leaders live these values in the organization is what we're looking at, right? So the core aspects here is we're looking to see that there are clearly espoused values that are unique to the business so that it can connect and relate to what it is that the business is dealing with. Leaders actually play a role, are role models, and the values are used to make sure that their actions are guided by, they're living by the actions, their day-to-day actions, and that they're living by the values that they themselves are trying to put in place in terms of culture for the organization, right? And we're looking also for evidence of ways of these values impact the culture, day-to-day experiences of employees, and the strategy and the decision making, right? Walk in the talk. Do they say what they do, and do they actually live the values on a day-to-day aspect? So as you can see, meaningful values and effective leadership need to provide support to create an environment of trust. If employees are supposed to have a meaningful relationship and build trust with management in the organization. Right. Now, when we have these in place, we said earlier when we looked at the model, we are able to see an outcome, a very nice environment. We have built a high trust environment, and obviously that is bringing together the possibility for maximizing human potential, right? Definition of this is a great workplace where everybody, regardless of who you are and what you do in the company, is able to contribute, and they're contributing the best. Now, everybody's best may not be the same, but are we able to tap into those unique talents of individuals and make sure that we are able to benefit from that as well, and that the individuals feel that they can contribute their best at every point in time, so that they create a sense of belonging in the organization as well, right? So the core aspects here are consistency of high trust experience across demographic groups, and whether they're having inclusive programs and practices so that everybody has the opportunity to contribute towards these aspects. And then, of course, when you have employees performing at their best, or you are able to tap into the maximum potential of employees in an organization, you have the benefits or the outcomes that we say that are derived from creating that environment, which is you create an environment where everybody in the organization is getting involved in innovation. We're not talking of innovation here in the sense of, creating a new IP or a new product or service, but we're creating a culture that enables the company to continuously improve, adapt quickly, and generate pivotal opportunities by tapping into intelligence and skills and passions of every person in the organization, right? So really creating a truly inclusive environment there as well, so that everybody can collaborate and contribute towards innovation, right? So these are the core aspects of innovation by all. And we like to see stories and evidence of employees' experience and a sense of safe learning mindset, so that, it's an environment in which they're free to make mistakes and learn from such mistakes as well. Because in order to do things differently, you may have to take some risks as well in the organization. And finally, the last aspects. Okay, before we go into that, we'll take quickly a look at some of the reports, some of the kind of results that we have seen through great workplaces companies. We see grow much faster when they have a culture of innovation, right? These are organizations that have been identified as great workplaces, and their employees are experiencing a climate that encourages innovation. And these organizations, you can see, perform at a median of 5.5 times higher year on year in terms of revenue growth compared to those in the lowest quartile. These are all organizations that have been measured through our trust index. Of course, these data points are from a US report, but nevertheless, it is quite significant in terms of the difference that you see versus organizations that have had extremely good results in terms of the experience, the climate they create for innovation in the organization. And finally, looking at the last outcome, which is the financial growth, right? So we said when you have an environment in which you are able to maximize human potential and where you're creating opportunity for everybody to innovate, you of course have the benefit of financial growth, right? And here we are talking about the expected outcome of successful, positive workplace culture, right? A workplace going out of business can't obviously be a great place to work, right? So these are resilient, robust environments through difficult times, hardships. They are able to produce results on a long-term, sustained basis, so that the employees benefit from this and all of their stakeholders benefit from these situations, right? Core aspects here. The leadership philosophy shows commitment to a long-term business success as opposed to a one-time recognition or one-time hitting an award or something like that. But we're looking towards creating an environment that continues to grow and is sustained. The overall health of the business is reflected in the key metrics such as revenue growth, market share, and all those other aspects that get measured. Okay, so when we're talking about financial growth, most often people want to see is there a return on investment? Do great workplaces make money, right? One of the things we don't measure in our survey is the financial outcomes or growth, right? All the other components that you saw, trust, effective leadership, values, innovation by all, those aspects are measured in our assessments in order to identify if an organization is a great place to work, but not the financial outcomes, right? But independent studies done, for example, in the US show us that great workplaces outperform other organizations in these stock market indices by as much as 3.33 or let's say 3.3 times in terms of stock market returns, right? And you will see that there are times when there are dips, right, in this chart that you're looking at. And these are times when there have been recessions or market conditions that have affected even great workplaces. So that is to say, it is not that great workplaces are immune to market shocks, but it is saying every time you see such a dip has taken place, you can see that there's been a sharp V-shaped bounce back. If you look particularly at the last dip that you see, that sharp V-shaped bounce back after the after COVID hit has shown how resilient great workplaces are, and this has justified the fact that they are rated. Their return on investment in the markets are much higher than others in these indices, Fortune 100, Russell 1000, and Russell 3000, all from the stock markets in the US. So how do we actually do this, right? What does a great place to work as an organization and in Sri Lanka and globally enable organizations to go from good to great to best? I'm sure most of you are working in at least good organizations, right? It's important to understand whether they're great organizations, and then great organizations can also become the best organizations. So what is it that we do, and how do we enable you all to go through these phases, right? So the first and most important aspect is that we say we need to measure, right? Obviously, anybody, great place to work, or even God can't come down and say, you have great workplace culture, or you have a high trust environment. We need to use a standard set of tools, a gold standard, as we said earlier, and measure the organization. And we use this by evaluating the organization's culture based on two aspects that we are looking at, right? Employees' experience through what I showed you before, which is a trust index survey that look at all those three relationships in the organization, and 15 different focus areas such as credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie, in terms of understanding what kind of experience employees are having. And on the other hand, we look to see also whether we have the right culture, the right people practices across the organization, and all those aspects. We looked at, in order to create that trusting environment, in order to enable effective leadership and meaningful values, in order to make sure that you are driving an environment where everybody is able to innovate and contribute, right? Have you put in place the right practices that create the culture? So we measure both these aspects in an organization, right? And then, of course, a great part of our business about inspiring people to go on that, take that journey, take every step required, not only just to become a great place to work, to continue and sustain and improve over time by helping organizations create the sense of commitment and align and transform their culture, right? So we're saying, even when you are a great place to work, once you have done an assessment or get certified or reached a particular standard, there's still work to be done. Because everything is fluid, everything is changing. And we know everyone in this room, everyone in an MBA program, I'm sure, or alumni of APIT would know how much workplace culture, how much the world has changed, and therefore how much workplace culture has changed, right? So we need to continuously make those changes and transform culture in order to build great workplaces. So we believe in inspiring organizations to do that. And one other key aspect of doing that is that we help organizations to celebrate by rewarding those organizations that invest in their human capital, right? So when an organization takes the assessment, finds out through our measurements, our global standard tools, that they have hit a standard that is required in order to be recognized as a great workplace, then we know that they have these key pillars in place, and they have set about building a high trust, high performance culture. And that obviously for those to happen, they are putting their human capital first, right? Their culture is important to them. They're investing in their people and creating the right human capital. So we believe, the right effort for their human capital, so that then they can be recognized as great workplaces, and we are able to certify them through our programs, which is why we help celebrate with them so that they're recognized for the efforts that they're putting in. So that really is the journey. Now it is up to you all in this room, those who are learning, those who are the movers and shakers in these organizations, to take action, right? Primarily, we wanted to take this session to help you to understand what those key components are, how you build a high trust, high performance environment, and also how that enables organizations to maximize human capital, and which, of course, we say will deliver better financial results and sustained growth for organizations. So we encourage each of you in this room or anyone joining this session to take action. And I'm sure in the process, Great Place to Work can help you all and your organizations become great as well. Right? Thank you very much. That brings me to the end of my session, Ruth. My presentation, at least. If there are any questions or anything you would like me to respond to, I'll be happy to take.
Thank you, Kshanika. It was a fantastic presentation. In fact, I took a few photographs also from your presentation.
That's good, Rahanta. Yes.
Yes, there are
all of us can learn every day, I guess. Yeah.
All sorts of questions are coming. One question they're asking is, you have put a pyramid.
Yeah.
It says that, why is it in that particular order?
Right. So I think, now I'm saying from memory, but fundamentally what you need to do is, first and foremost, you need to ensure that you have put in place the base, right? The foundation has to be strong, right? When you're building a pyramid or when you're building any building, you need to know that the base has to be strong, otherwise it's going to collapse, right? Or it won't be sustainable. So you need to first create that environment of trust, is what we're saying, right? Without building that environment of trust, high trust, high performance, yes, and the outcomes as you go up on that pyramid, if I remember correctly, mostly around, how you're creating a consistent and positive experience across the organization, not just for some, not for a particular demography, not just for C-level, not just for management team, right? All employees in the organization need to have this positive experience, right? So without that base in place, Rahanta, it becomes, pretty obviously a bit difficult for people to have consistent experience, right? And if you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to maximize the potential of all your employees. Yes, some groups maybe, right? But if you're not creating a consistent experience for all your employees, there are some groups that are going to feel marginalized, or that their potential wasn't tapped into, or that they could not contribute positively, etc. Right? So you'll have pockets of high performers. We're trying to create a majority of people becoming high performers through creating that collaborative environment so that they can contribute to the growth, and that helps an organization sustain. So sustainability of an organization or growth of an organization is not easy. It's easy to perform 1 year, fall next year, pick up with market conditions, ups and downs. But in order to get to that top, which is the difficult part, top of the pyramid, which is sustained organization stability, you need to have those key building blocks in place, would be my answer.
There's another good question coming up, Kshanika. What they're asking is, how important is data-driven decision-making for a great workplace?
Right. So I believe 100% in data-driven decision-making, right? I'm constantly haranguing my teams here to enable us to make decisions based on data, right? But data is only one element, right? Because at the end of the day, the data is also created. You're talking about numbers, you're talking about revenue, you're talking about AR, you're talking about stats, you're talking about responses from surveys, right? By people taking action, right? The underlying component that is bringing this data, which we can take initiative, make decisions on, are driven by people. Right? They are not, they may be driven through machines, through computers, but at the end of the day, if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, right? So people are the ones who are contributing to enabling that we have the data to be able to make good decisions, right? But in this day and age, in this, fourth digital generation, it is very key that, because you need to make quick decisions, it needs to be supported by data, right? And you need to be able to see patterns in data. So we are saying, we assess 10,000 organizations across 10 million organizations across tens of thousands of countries, more than 100 plus countries across the globe annually. So why do we do this assessment annually? Because every year we see that the data points change, right? So we see that, for example, last year the bars would have been hybrid. Next year, it would be something else, right? It's not going to remain static. It depends on market conditions. Now, if it was not driven by data and just people and their sentiments, it will be very industry or company or country specific, right? But we can derive so much patterns from data. So it is very important for growth and sustainability and accuracy of decision making for organizations. But I just wanted to drive home the fact that even data is created by people, right? So the most important component here is your human capital. Yeah.
Aruna is asking a question. Does the nationality play a big role in the great workplace?
No.
And okay. And a question onto that lag behind is, what is the biggest challenges you have seen in Sri Lanka for an organization to be a great workplace?
Right. So definitely nationality plays no, I can say clearly, no role at all. Right. The focus entirely is on, given your nationality, your country, your industry, your organization, big or small, right? Whether you can create that environment that your employees feel, appreciated and valued, and whether they can feel that they're contributing to that environment, that create that high trust environment in where you can get high performing individuals. And therefore, we're saying, any organization, we have this mantra that says any organization can become a great place to work. Right. And that is true, right? The biggest challenges that we have seen, we say that building a great workplace has to start right at the top. If you look at that pyramid, right? It's not the other way around. So basically, decision makers have to get involved in this process, right? This is not an HR initiative. A lot of the time people mistake us for an HR organization. We don't, even till about a few months back, we didn't even have any HR people in our team. Our entire team was sans any HR skills or HR people in our team, right? So we are definitely not in that space. This is not an HR initiative. This is an initiative that needs to be driven from the top, because it's about culture, and culture can only be put in place or changed or transformed or even be implemented by the intent of the key leaders. Right. So getting that buy-in from leadership is I would say is the biggest challenge that we are still. It was the biggest challenge day one. I mean, we've come a long way. We've assessed nearly 500 organizations in Sri Lanka in the 10 years, but nevertheless, and we have some excellent leaders, top leaders getting involved in that process and driving organizations down this journey of building great workplaces. But still, I would say that would be the single biggest challenge, is to get the buy-in of top management or top leadership in organizations. And the reason they are Rohanta most often is people still believe that culture is soft. Culture doesn't need to be measured, right? Culture just exists, right? They do not still understand that, as the saying goes, that, basically culture is more important than strategy these days, and it is a new currency. So organizations need to spend, their money and effort in making sure that their organization culture is right, and the other things will fall into place, right? Easier said than done. So getting that buy-in remains our biggest challenge. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kshanika. Brilliant chat. Appreciate sincerely for spending almost an hour with us. And we really love to have you one day have a chat with on a face-to-face basis. As you know, we've had about 100 of these key MBA diaries from different parts of the world, and I think great place to work is something synonymous with top successful organizations. So thank you so much, Kshanika. Ruth, over to you.
Kshanika, thank you so much for a great session. We know you're very busy and you've taken time out of your schedule to meet with our students and to share your knowledge with them. So as we come to a close of this webinar, I would like to inform our industry partners that we're about to start our internship program for the students. Our next cycle will be starting up soon. So if you do have any vacancies, do send it across to us. The same goes for any job openings, full-time positions. We have a batch of students passing out. So just link and let us know if there's any openings. So with this, I would like to take the opportunity to thank our IT team for their technical support during the webinar, all our students, our alumni, our industry partners, and well-wishers for joining in to this excellent session. So once again, before we wrap up, Kshanika, thank you so much. And with this, I would like to wish everyone a good morning, good afternoon, or a good evening from wherever you're joining in. Take care till we meet again next time.